In this lecture, we are going to begin extending the global styles by adding colors to the color palette. The color palette is a series of colors that the user can choose from. Optionally, they can add custom colors to the color palette. Let's explore the color palette in the editor before modifying it. Inside the Gutenberg editor, we are modifying the index template. On the right side, let's open the Global Styles sidebar. If we were to click on the Colors option, we would be given the option to modify. You can click on the Palette option to add colors. By default, WordPress will provide a few colors to help you get started. If you're developing a theme, you should consider disabling WordPress's default color palette. If you intend on recommending colors, providing too many options can be overbearing. Less is more. Therefore, you should remove WordPress's recommendations. At the end of the day, it's completely up to you. For our theme, we are going to be adding a lot of colors. It makes sense to remove the default palette. Let's give it a try. Switch over to your editor. We will be working with the theme.json file. Inside the root object, add a new property called settings with an initial value of an object. The settings object allows us to modify the settings related to the editor. For a better description, you can hover your mouse over the property name. As long as you're adding the schema to the file, descriptions will be available for most properties. Without the schema, we wouldn't be given this description. As you can see, WordPress states that we can modify which customization settings are available to the user. You may be wondering, how do I know what settings are available? There are two resources worth checking out. In the resource section of this lecture, I provide a link to both resources. The first resource provides a beginner's guide to the theme.json file. If you're getting started with theme development, this resource will provide examples and descriptions of what you can do with the theme.json file. As for the second resource, it's not as beginner-friendly. This reference will provide a complete list of all available options in the theme.json file. For example, we are given the name, type, and default value of each property. If these resources feel overwhelming, don't worry. Throughout this section, we are going to review the most important settings for theme development. Don't feel pressured to add every option available. Let's head back to our editors. Inside the settings object, add another object called colors. The description for this property says the following: settings related to color. We're on the right track. Inside this object, we can add a property called default palette. By default, this property is set to true. Setting this property to true will allow WordPress to recommend colors. We can disable this feature by setting this property to false. Let's refresh the editor in our browsers. If we take a peek at the colors section of the global styles, things are going to be different. Unlike before, the palette will be completely empty. To be clear, we haven't disabled the option to pick colors. Users can still add custom colors to their theme. By setting the default palette property to false, WordPress will not recommend colors. Let's keep playing around with colors in the next set of lectures.